everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Angela and today's video is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to be talking about a topic that is very dear to my heart. I love doing makeup tutorials and, beauty stuff on this channel and vlogs, but I also want to make a difference in some other ways as well. I wasn't sure what to title this video initially, but I think that this video is going to be titled How to Love Yourself, because initially that is my goal, and the things that I'm going to be talking about are things that I have started doing, exercises that I have implemented in my life that have really helped me overcome, those negative thoughts when it comes to like body image, or just, learning to not be so hard on ourselves and be so critical of ourselves, because we can definitely be our own worst critics and it can really affect our happiness. So I do have some notes here because I kind of want to stick them a little bit, and I want this video to flow because I can totally go off on a tangent and start talking about something that's totally irrelevant like I'm doing right now. So if I'm looking down every once in a while, bear with me. I'm just trying to kind of keep things in order and make this video as helpful and I guess as fast as possible, because I don't want it to end up being like 30 minutes. So with that being said, let's go ahead and hop into this video. So the first thing I really want to talk about, the main thing I want to talk about in this video, is doing personal development. I don't know if you guys know what personal development is, or what self-development is, whatever you want to call it. But I didn't really know what it was or what it meant or how it could help me until maybe about 3 years ago I started doing it. And if you don't know what it is, basically doing personal development is listening to something or reading something, even if it's just for 10 minutes a day, that's going to add some positivity into your mind. So listening or reading something positive that's going to help shift that negative mindset. And the way I look at it, and first of all, let me just say that before I had initially gotten into doing personal development, and when I found out what it was, I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was dumb. I didn't think I needed it, and it wasn't something that I had committed to. But I am someone who struggles with anxiety and depression and body image, and it just got so overwhelming that I wanted to try it. I really wanted to see if listening to something positive could really help shift that mindset for me, and it really has. And the way I like to think of it and explain it to people when they ask is, you wouldn't go a whole day without eating. If you did, you would be cranky, you would be tired, you wouldn't feel good, you would be starving. And it's kind of the same thing with your mind. You have to feed your mind that positivity. Or maybe if like you were going, if you're going to the gym and you're trying to, gain muscle and get stronger, that's not going to happen unless you consistently do it over time. And it's the same thing with, your mindset. If you want to think more positive, if you want to, not think those negative thoughts, then you need to retrain your brain just like you would if you were trying to retrain your body in the gym. It's the same exact concept, and it takes consistency, and you have to do it every single day. And like I said, it can seem like daunting doing it every single day, but it's not like you have to sit there and read for like 2 hours, or if you don't have time to read, you can listen to a podcast or an audiobook on your way to work or on your way to the grocery store for 5 or 10 minutes a day. And I can definitely say that over the last 3 years, I've grown so much as a person. I've become a much more positive, glass half full versus half empty type of person. Don't get me wrong, I still have my days, and if I start to get out of the routine of listening to personal development, I can definitely start to feel myself reverting back to the way I used to be. So it's something you have to continuously, do and be consistent with. And that's why I really wanted to take some time to talk about this. Maybe you're wondering what personal development has to do with loving yourself more. But the thing is that I think that at the end of the day, all of us struggle with this, men and women, but I think women especially can be way too hard on themselves. We say things to ourselves that we would never ever say to somebody that we love or care about, or even a stranger on the street. We would probably never even say the things we say to ourselves to a stranger on the street. We say really hurtful things to ourselves in our mind. We criticize ourselves way too harshly, and that can affect our overall happiness. It can cause anxiety, it can cause depression. We can compare ourselves too much to other people, to other women. And, doing personal development has just been such an eye-opening experience for me, and helped me so much to realize that, I don't have to be so critical of myself, and that's why I want to talk about it. And in order to not be so critical of ourselves and learn to change that mindset, just like a muscle, you have to exercise your mind to learn to think, to learn to change the way you think every single day. So personal development can be done, in a variety of ways. Like I said, you can read if you love to read, sit down and find a good book to read, or listen to a podcast. For me, I have a really, really busy schedule, and as much as I love sitting down and reading, I won't commit to it if I have to sit down and read. So I usually listen to an audiobook or some type of podcast while I'm driving to work, or, while I'm driving to get groceries, or even while I'm getting ready in the morning. And it's just so helpful to start your day off with positive thinking. So I want to recommend some of the podcasts that that are some of my favorites that I've been listening to lately. But first and foremost, I want to say that it's really hard to recommend certain types of personal development because what everybody is struggling with, everybody's inner struggle is different. For me, I do struggle with anxiety. I do struggle with body image and depression. So I do try and listen to podcasts that are based off of that. So, if what you struggle with is different, there's pretty much a podcast out there for anything. And, if you have an iPhone or even any other type of phone, I'm pretty sure there's some type of app you can download and listen to podcasts for free. So it doesn't cost money to do personal development unless you want a specific type of book, but that's really why I stick to podcasts, because there's so many out there, and they're so helpful, and it doesn't cost any money, so there's no reason not to try it. So one of my first favorite podcasts that I've been listening to lately is called the Adult Shit Podcast. If you've never heard of it, it's from BuzzFeed. So I don't know if you guys know BuzzFeed, but it's a big company and they do videos on YouTube and all that fun stuff. And they just started a podcast. The girls who host it are Kate and Kelsey. They work at BuzzFeed. And if you want to try and find it, it's Adult Shit, but the I is actually spelled with a 1. So it's SH1T. So that's how you would find it in the podcast. And the reason I love it is because they're in their mid to late 20s, just like me. So I can relate to them, and they talk about so many different things. They've talked about body positivity, female empowerment, struggling with anxiety and depression, or, just going through a rough time, or even if you struggle with chronic body pain, stuff like that, which I do. It's basically just a really good podcast to be able to relate. And it's just about life, it's called Adult Shit for a reason. It's really about adult shit, all the struggles we struggle with as adults, as women, in our everyday lives. And it's really just a good reminder that we're not alone. And it's one of my favorite podcasts. And I think they just started it this year, or at the end of last year, I'm not sure, but it hasn't been around very long, but I absolutely love it. I listen to it every time they put up a new podcast. So if that's something that sounds like it would be helpful to you, just know that they do cuss in it. So, it's not very kid friendly, but if you're looking for a real podcast where they get real, they tell it how it is, and you just want to be able to relate to people and, hear about other people's issues and be reminded that you're not alone, Adult Shit Podcast is a really great one. The second podcast that I really love is called Over and On With It, and the host is Christine Hassler. She's amazing. This is another podcast that's really great. That's really great for just, life problems in general. It talks a lot about the similar topics as Adult Shit, but it's very, very much a different type of feel and a different type of energy. It's more very zen, and she really comes at you in a very loving way. I don't know if this sounds weird, but anyways, you just have to listen to it. Over and On With It is a great podcast. Basically, she talks to people on the phone who are having specific struggles in their life, whether it's whether they're struggling with a specific obstacle in their career or life or relationship or whatever, and helps them come up with a solution to, move forward and get over that obstacle. And I love it because it's also very relatable, and I, use those tips in my own life. The second two that I want to talk about have to do with body image, and just learning to love yourself more. So if you struggle with body image, one of them that I love is called the Love Food Podcast. And I love it because the host of this podcast, I believe her name is Julie Duffy Dillon, and she is a registered dietitian, but she is all for health at every size. She understands that it's possible to be healthy in multiple different body types. And I love that about the podcast. She just talks about learning to love your body the way it is and learn to enjoy the journey. And it's really cool because people, what they do is they write her a letter and tell her what they are struggling with, and she reads it on the podcast, and then she'll usually talk with another specialist on the podcast about how to help this person overcome this issue. And this podcast is great because if you have an eating disorder, or you've had an eating disorder in the past, or you just have like disordered type eating, when it comes to like dieting and stuff like that, because I know that I have definitely struggled with disordered eating in the past, and I still do sometimes, and that's why I'm trying to get more into body positivity and health at every size. And this podcast has been so helpful for me when it comes to that mindset, struggle, always overthinking things when it comes to food and weight and weighing myself all the time. So if that's something you struggle with like I do, then the Love Food podcast is really, really great. And the fourth podcast that I wanted to talk about is the Body Love Project, and that is hosted by Jessie Haggerty. It's an amazing podcast as well. I won't go into too much depth because I don't want to say it's very similar. It's a completely different podcast than the Love Food podcast, but the end goal is the same. It's really about learning to love yourself as you are, and know that it's okay to be in a bigger body, and know that it's okay to that just because you're not a specific body type doesn't mean that you aren't worthy, or it doesn't mean that you're not healthy. So if that's something that you struggle with, I would definitely recommend that podcast as well. So those are all the podcasts I'm going to recommend for now. I have tons of podcasts and audiobooks that I listen to. Sometimes I change it up. Sometimes I'll listen to one podcast more than the other. It just depends on what my mood is that day. And I just don't want this video to end up being too long. I just wanted to kind of put this out there for anybody who might be struggling, because I know that it's so hard in our society, especially, if you struggle with anxiety and depression and body image and all that stuff, it can be super overwhelming. And this is something that's been really helpful for me and helped me remember that, number one, you don't have to be so hard on yourself. And number two, you're not alone. And it can feel like you're alone sometimes, because there's a lot of, There's still a lot of a scarcity mindset around like anxiety and depression, and people are afraid to talk about it, which makes people who experience it feel alone because it's not talked about enough. And as hard as it is to come on here and talk about my anxiety and my depression and my disordered eating habits that I have experienced over the years, from literally being on a diet since I was 8 years old, it can feel like we're alone, and that can just make it 10 times worse. So, it is hard to talk about it, but at the same time, if this video can help somebody, if somebody watching this is struggling with this, or, just struggling with loving yourself and having confidence in general, I hope that this helps you, and that, you realize that you're not alone, and that there are things that you can do, and certain exercises that you can do to exercise your mind and learn to turn those thoughts around and start thinking more positively. Just remember, no matter what you look like, no matter what your size, no matter what your health, you're still worthy, and you deserve to be happy. And I hope that you will put some of these podcasts into action, download some of these podcasts, listen to them, see if they help you, and just go from there. And also too, most importantly, I think there's this thing in the society where, we're supposed to always be happy. And if we're not always happy, if we don't always like what we see when we look in the mirror, or if we're not always just having a good day, then there's something wrong. We need to be doing something to change that. Just know that that's not true, and that over the years, I've learned, especially this past year, I've learned that that's life. We're not always going to be happy. We're going to have days where we feel down. We're going to have days when we're upset because maybe something happened, maybe something tragic happened, or maybe nothing happened and you're just in a bad mood and you really don't know why. Maybe you're just feeling down and you just need to feel those feelings. Or maybe, most days you love what you see when you look in the mirror, you're confident, but you still have those days where you look in the mirror and you don't like what you see, and that's okay too. Give yourself a little grace. You're a human being. You're not always going to be super positive and happy and go-getter and super motivated all the time. It's life. It's okay to let yourself feel those feelings. It's okay to be sad sometimes. It's okay to be unmotivated sometimes. It's even okay to look in the mirror and not like your body sometimes. Everybody does. I guarantee you everybody does, no matter what body type they have, whether they are super thin, super fit, super muscular, whether they are fat. It doesn't matter. And I don't use fat in a negative way at all. I think fat is just a word, just like thin is, just like muscular is, just like fit is. It's just a word, and it's been stereotyped in the media as something negative, and that needs to change. So I know that this video is kind of borderline how to love yourself, borderline body positivity. But for me, body positivity is a big part of my journey of learning to love myself, and that's why I've talked about this a lot in this video. And I think I'm gonna make a separate video specifically on how to kind of get into body positivity, like kind of start getting into it if you're not really sure how and you're kind of scared, or kind of like, you know, not sure what body positivity is, or if it's something you want to be a part of, because I know it took me a long time to kind of ease my way in there and dip my toes into it. So I think I'm going to end the video here, guys. Like I said, I really hope this video helped, because you're not alone, and just know that it will get better. So hope you guys are having a great day, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.